Apigility is the easiest way to build robust, secure, and documented APIs. When you first launch the admin web application, you're presented with this welcome screen. For those of you who've known the 1.0 version of Apigility, you immediately see that the UI has been completely redesigned. It is nicer, faster, more intuitive, and now fully responsive. Let's create a new API. We're going to call it Status. When you first create an API, the only thing that comes as a default preset is the version. There, we have the version 1 of our API. But we have nothing in it, no service. Let's create a new RPC service. We're going to call it ping. And its route will be ping. This will be the endpoint for our service. A bunch of default presets have been set for us. We can of course see the route we've just defined. We can also specify an HTTP method. Here, GET is set by default, but we could add support for post, put, patch, and delete. The other feature that had been set up is content negotiation. Apigility prefers JSON, and as such, our RPC service will respond to applications/JSON. We also provide a custom media type per API. In this case, it's application/vnd.status, which is the name of our API, .v1 plus JSON. We have version media types. This allows you to be well-formed and specify vendor-specific and version resources in your API calls. Next, let's create some fields. Although fields are commonly used to handle incoming data, they can be used to document data as well. We're going to create a field called ACK, A-C-K for acknowledge. In the description, we're saying that this is going to acknowledge the request with a timestamp. Now let's look at the documentation. So far it's empty. Let's fix it. For the GET method, which is the only method supported by our ping service so far, we can provide a description and a response body. Let's fill them. So ping the API for acknowledgement. And for the response body, acknowledge the request with a timestamp. Let's save this. When I create an RPC service, it creates a controller for me, named from the service, and an action named from the service as well. As you can see, so far my service does nothing. The action is empty. But it also creates a factory which allows me to be able to inject some dependencies in my controller if I need to. All those declarations are handled by default thanks to ZF2. Off screen, I'm typing some code in order to implement the business logic of our ping service. So, line 11 through 13, here is the code I've just added in this particular controller. I'm returning a view with a single variable ag with a timestamp value. The view model I'm using here is a ZF content negotiation view model. These features allows me to provide a map of different view models to the accept headers that might select them. And this allows me to provide ultimate representation from an API if I want to. We're providing JSON by default, but you could provide HTML, XML, YAML, you name it, by providing a mapper of these. So let's take a look at what it looks like. You can see here the ping URI, and I'm going to do a GET request. I'm going to specify an accept header of text/HTML, which allows me to see what the browser would see. And I get an error. 406 not acceptable. In addition, I get a content type of application/problem plus JSON. This is a special error type that has been proposed to the IETF that we've adopted for Apigility. What's interesting is the detail field, which is specific for the incoming request, cannot honor accept type specified. So what should I send then? Let's try JSON. And sure enough, that works. I get my acknowledgement with this timestamp. I can also send my custom media type. And I get my response for my acknowledgement. Now let's try posting to my service. We'll specify a content type of application/JSON. And 405, not allowed. And it makes sense because we only specified get as allowed method. And if we look at the headers, I can only do a get request. I could have known this information by sending an options request. So Apigility is providing for us HTTP methods negotiation, content negotiation, and error reporting out of the box.